A new year brings a fresh start, and that means saying goodbye to things that no longer serve you. Decluttering has many physical as well as mental health benefits, but people often ask, where do I start? On today's episode, a step-by-step guide on decluttering your home and your workplace. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to Med Talk Health Talk. Months go by and the stuff in your home or your office start to accumulate. Now you tend to clear it out, but you just can't seem to find a way to do that. Don't worry, you're not alone. This is very common among Filipino households. Now, to help us understand and help us organize our stuff in better ways, we have with us Ali Canita, who is a decluttering coach. Hello and welcome, Ali.
Hi, Doc Freddy.
Clutter can be things that aren't used anymore. It can mean different things to different people. But in general, why do we accumulate stuff that we eventually don't get to use naman talaga?
There's this feeling of always wanting to have things, maybe to make us feel secure, to compensate something. If we're sad, sometimes we tend to buy, right? Or sometimes we compare lifestyles. Could be like, oh, she has this, I must also have that. Or upgrades. There are so many reasons why we tend to accumulate. But what I've seen so far in my practice, it's really the attachment to a specific memory.
Now, all the reasons you mentioned are valid, Ali, but a lot of people might see this and say, there's no harm to that. How can clutter negatively affect us?
Clutter could be a micro-stressor. The way we sense the world is through our senses. When we see something, there's already a thought that comes in. So whether it's good or bad, sometimes we're unconscious. But we don't know that there are things might already be causing us stress. So maybe that pile of paper that you haven't touched in a long time actually reminds you of an unfinished task.
Let's talk about the source. Where does all these accumulate? Now, can we narrow it down to impulse buying? Going out to go shopping without any real thing in mind, just trying to see what's nice today and then buying that.
If you're already in the environment, if you're already in the mall or just in your phone looking at things to buy, then the tendency is to actually act and buy something. So you're already there in that situation where it's, I think I need this, but unconsciously or mindlessly, we just tend to buy because for the fun of it, for the heck of it, but it's just temporary.
Now, Ali, okay, let's take a concrete example. Let's say, for example, shoes. A lot of people have actually more shoes than they actually need, but some people have shoes as part of their collection. If a lot of shoes are organized, is this still considered clutter?
Well, it depends. So collectors should be displaying. If it's just there to collect in terms of quantity and then not really using them, not really admiring them, it's just for the sake of having like I have 20 or 100 or whatnot, but not having any added value to that person's life, then it could really be clutter.
Now, Ali, we've been talking about the home. Let's talk about the workplace. What advantages can an organized, decluttered workspace have on a person?
Well, number one is really all about distraction. If there are less stuff, less distraction, less things you see. So another thing is really to build up on your momentum because there's not much distraction and you're just left there to work. Then it's easier for you to become more productive.
Now let's show our viewers that. Here we have an example of a typical workspace. Let's go step by step on how someone can declutter their workspace, make it more friendly for them, less micro-stressors as you mentioned.
In your work area, it's really important to take a look at the bulky furnitures. Because what we want to have is like a space where you can really move. So that's why this table is a little slim because the room is really small.
Okay.
And then the level of the desk, that's why this one is this height, is to match the eye level so it's not gonna strain my shoulders when I work.
Okay, so Ali, here we have your actual drawer. So tell us more about this.
Here you can see there are a lot of like handwritten notes, some receipts, headsets. I even have candies there and 3 ball pens. So we go back, what do we really need? So what I really need in my drawer are these things. This is actually my affirmation box. And then I need at least headsets. And then here you will see this one. It's not really supposed to be here, so I'll set this aside. This one isn't supposed to be here. It has to be together with my watch collection. Right? And this one, I need it to be here because this is what I use to light a candle. This one, no, because it has to be with my digital stuff. So the system here is I will just put here whatever I need when I work on my laptop. So whatever you find in your homes, maybe sometimes it just really looks so messy, but those things just need to be relocated to their proper places. So most of the time, it's easier for us to declutter and clean our spaces where there's already a home for each item.
Now, how about those who like to recycle? Keep it there. We might find a use for it later on.
Set it aside and then call that recycling center. Because if not, if you will not take action, it will just stay in that same space and it becomes stagnant. Then it really just becomes clutter.
Okay. Now, moving on to files, folders, things of that nature. How should people organize those?
A lot of my clients are really having a hard time fixing their papers. And sometimes it's actually a cause of stress. First thing to do is check all of the papers that you have. And then put it by category. So like we have papers that are related to government documents, papers that are related for health, papers that are for insurance. Make sure that you have that segregation first. And then go through, is this real estate property still yours, or if you've already sold it out or whatever, then maybe don't need to keep it anymore. It's important to have that kind of segregation. You don't need to buy specific containers right away. You can actually reuse. The important thing is you have the information segregated so it's easy for you to access or retrieve.
And I notice it's not just inserted, the actual papers in one giant folder. There's also more organization happening inside.
This is all the insurance that I have under my name. And then instead of having those bulky folders, so what we did was to just get this and then have everything put in each page.
Okay.
So it's easy to act.
To retrieve as well. Okay, we'll be talking more about how to declutter, give our viewers some more tips on how to get organized later on in the show. Well, eventually, having so much clutter can affect your health as well. When we return, we'll talk more about that when Med Talk Health Talk continues. Among the most common resolutions around the world is getting organized because decluttering has many benefits, especially it sets us on that mindset on how we will start our year. Now here to give us some tips on how to keep organized, we have with us psychologist Luis Villaruel. Hello and welcome to Med Talk Health Talk, Luis.
Thank you, Freddy. Thank you for having me here.
Now, Luis, when it comes to getting organized or having clutter for that matter, a lot of people may not be aware that it has some physical as well as mental drawbacks. Let's start with the physical first. We can talk about how the dirt accumulates, possible accidents. Talk about this a little bit.
So I guess when we are talking about a cluttered environment, no, na it gets kind of dusty, this could activate asthma, this could be bad for yung mga respiratory problems. Let's say lack of ventilation in that area, stacked boxes. Speaking of stacked boxes, it could be a hazard kung malaglag yon if they're haphazardly placed lang. So, clutter kasi nga is an untidy mess, hindi siya organized at all. So it could also not be safe in itself to have it around you.
Speaking about the mental effects or how clutter affects our mental health. Talk about this naman.
Having that clutter around you restricts your movement. Like say may lamesa ka tapos andun yung mga keyboard and yung mouse mo. If there's too many items there, nahihirapan kang gumalaw, you feel a little restricted kasi kahit physical siya, it affects you mentally, you feel frustrated. Maybe people who have claustrophobic or agoraphobic na mga tendencies, they feel very uncomfortable. They can feel very stressed in an environment na hindi maayos, na it's very cluttered, it's very small.
Right. I can safely say that the general population likes things organized, like things in order, likes to see things clean and tidy. But even the most well-organized person, eventually their desk, their room, it starts to fill in with extra stuff. Why does this happen?
Naturally kasi life tends to move towards chaos or chaotic or disordered spaces. To put things into order, to categorize things is an intentional thing. Kailangan binibigyan mo yan talaga ng proper pansin, no? Attention talaga siya. Another factor rin kasi is, example nga, yung lack of unintentionality. May makikita ka sa mga online shop, uy, cute to, uy, okay to. Pero you don't actually think, how does this fit in my system? Paano siya gagana sa environment ko? You start to collect those things just because you look at them for their individual value rather than how does it affect yung overall space mo. Kaya dumadami yung mga those types of things na they seem small but they accumulate.
That's an interesting point of view, Louis. So how can people actually disengage from material things? How can people sort of reconcile with themselves that they don't need all this stuff?
Some people kasi, for example, they get the things now that they're adults versus when they were kids. Dahil kasi nung bata sila, they didn't really have the money, they didn't really have the capacity or the ability to do it, no? So parang dito, that's when they're living their lives. That's when they are trying to experience the things na hindi nila na-experience, yung kulang. So that's something you have to evaluate rin. Am I trying to compensate for something in the past by doing something now? That's not necessarily bad per se, but yun nga, when it becomes dysfunctional na, when it's costing you a lot more than what you can afford, see that's when it becomes a problem. To disengage with that, it really is all about being mindful, being intentional. Kailangan meron kang mindset na, okay, I want this because ganito ganon. It's gonna help me, it's gonna improve my life, it's gonna add value to my life, no? Not because on a whim lang, okay yan ah.
Speaking of things that accumulate or clutter for that matter, what about sentimental things? I know in the Filipino culture, we hang on to things, lalo na yung mga may sentimental value. But where do we draw the line? How do we let go of all of this? Is this normal?
It's actually very common, but it is indicative of yun nga, yung attachment kasi. Minsan nasasambahan na natin yung mga bagay rather than yung thought kasi. So, for example, yun nga, you mentioned yung damit ni baby growing up na nakikita mo, oh, ang cute nito, no? But yun nga, like parang pag nakikita mo siya, naaalala mo yung memories ng baby, pero parang you are more attached to the item than the memory itself. We can learn kasi to appreciate the sentimental thought of it without the item. Pwede pa rin natin siyang matutunan na, oh, maybe someone else might benefit from this item pa nga if I give it to somewhere else, no? That could create a new memory rin in and of itself. Siguro nga, yung letting go, medyo tayo as a culture, very anxious, very fear-driven. Paano kung kailangan ko itong bagay later on? It's more about being intentional kasi, do I really need this pa rin ba?
There goes the question. What should people do in order to address this compulsion, this need to hang on to things? Or how can they approach someone who they see is sort of in this pathway?
Ang pinaka-important dito is being mindful, being intentional about it. Maybe you could ask yourself, how does this object improve or benefit or contribute to my life? Something that you have, does this help me do what I have to do? Maybe you're placing things in your work environment na nakaka-distract pala sa'yo. Maybe that's something you can take out. I'm not saying sentimental things are wrong, ha? Baka mamaya may family portrait ka in your workplace, picture of your dog. When you see that, naaalala mo, this is why I work. This is why I do what I do. And that's good na. That is a good motivator. It has a specific purpose. Pero when it's, for example, bigay ni crush na chocolate na 1 year ago, tas you're holding on to that, that's the time na, okay, yung item na yung sinasambahan ko rather than yung thoughtfulness mismo.
Definitely, this is something that probably goes deeper than face value, than just for having stuff all around. Is there a deeper meaning why people hang on to stuff for long periods of time?
The anxiety that runs deep. Kasi siguro nung bata pa tayo, we were taught not to make mistakes. We were taught bawal ka magkamali. And so, you want to keep things on hand kesa not being able to have it later on. parang laging handa yung sobra-sobra na nga. O ano gagawin natin sa sobra na yon? And that's something you have to process because rather than declutter having an effect on us, maybe it's prudent to understand why does clutter happen ba? Is there something with us that causes the clutter?
Very important points there. Now, before we go, do you have any advice for our viewers, especially those who want to start that journey on decluttering their lives?
First and foremost, siguro, take 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, allot mo lang. Para ka nag-feedback sa sarili mo. Usually, you ask yourself, what can I do better than what I did today, so I can improve tomorrow. So maybe today you say na, okay, maybe I could have saved some more time. Imbes na tumatayo ako to get that object from over there, I'll put it closer to me, no? So mini steps, no? These small victories until it eventually becomes something that helps you overall. You have to be intentional kasi your space, your environment will move towards that magulo, that chaotic area unless you really put your mind to it na I want to keep this space for this. I want to keep it clean. I want to keep it functional. So I will.
Thank you very much, Luis, for your very good insights on how to declutter. So how can you actually declutter your home in time for the new year? More on this when we return. Stay with us on Med Talk Health Talk. As exciting as Christmas can be here in the Philippines, it can also be quite stressful. That's why decluttering your home can help you relax and recharge you for that new year to come. Now, to give us some more tips, we're still joined by Miss Ali Canita, decluttering coach. Now, Ali, when it comes to our viewers having those tips and having those skills on how to declutter their home, share them with us.
Especially for those who are just starting out or are feeling overwhelmed, I suggest to do a space map, to write it down and notice what you see in your space.
Okay.
Because that will give you a perspective on where to start, where to begin. And then second is to be clear with your intention why you want to do it, because that will serve as your guiding post for what to let go of and what to keep. And then third, manage your energy. So don't say, I will just schedule it on this day to do the whole house, because you might be overexerting yourself. It will not be a good experience for you. Because decluttering is a journey, just like life is a cycle, right? So you have to really go back to things and rearrange again and again to fit the life stage that you are in. So take it step by step in terms of decluttering.
How often do you think should people stop and look at their stuff and see if they should be decluttering? Should this be like a yearly thing, a monthly thing, a weekly thing?
So it depends on your lifestyle. Like for me with 2 toddlers, it has to be almost monthly because they grow up very fast. So we have to let go of the clothes that they have already outgrown. But for some, it can be quarter or even twice a year. It really depends on the life stage.
Now, Ali, how can we best decide on which things to let go, which things to keep?
Yeah, so it really depends on your intention. How do you want to live in your space or the experience that you want in your space? So for most of us, for most of my clients as well, it's all about feeling light and feeling peaceful at home. So if you see an item that's not helping you feel peaceful or feel light, then it could already go.
How about the time when you throw something but regret it? How can you reconcile with that? If something was thrown away but you decide, I shouldn't have thrown that away, what should people do?
Yeah, so the beauty of setting an intention is that it's something that you really want to experience for yourself. So having regrets later on is like, no, it's okay because at that time, this is what I needed. It could be something that will really make you feel good of your decision, of the decision that you made. And also just to think about the possibility of, because you have let it go, you have shared it to somebody else, then maybe it could make you feel better about giving away something. Another thing would be, it doesn't mean that you cannot have it again. So knowing that you will always be abundant with the things that you need, even if you've let go of something, you've shared it to somebody else, and then you need it again in the future, you will still have the capacity to have it again if you really need it.
Okay. Now, before we go, do you have any tips or any advice for our viewers, especially those who are struggling to try and get organized?
So it's really a form of self-care. Like how you take care of your space is also the way you take care of yourself. When your space isn't really helping you with the things that you need to do or with the relaxation that you need to have, because we all have busy lives, then maybe it's already a good start-off point for you to start decluttering.
Thank you so much, Ali, Kanita, for sharing with us the tips and skills on how someone should be organized and start to declutter. There are many reasons why people hold on to things for long periods of time, but the new year is the perfect time to get rid of that clutter and focus on things that truly matter. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for joining us here on MedTalk Health Talk.